For more than a century, history seemed settled. Ancient hunter-gatherers lived across Europe. Then farmers arrived, the hunter-gatherers disappeared, the farmers inherited the continent. Civil clean. Easy to understand, but history has a habit of hiding its biggest secrets. And sometimes those secrets remain hidden for thousands of years, until science finds them. The story begins with a man named Svante Pääbo, born in Stockholm, Sweden, on April 20th, 1955. As a young scientist, he became obsessed with a question few people took seriously. Could DNA survive death? Not for decades, not for centuries. For thousands of years, most experts believed the answer was obvious. No, DNA breaks apart, cells decay, nature destroys evidence, time erases everything. Ancient DNA research seemed impossible, yet Pääbo refused to walk away. While other scientists studied living people, he focused on the dead. He searched inside ancient bones, ancient teeth. Ancient remains forgotten by history. The work was difficult. Samples became contaminated. Experiments failed. Results disappeared. Many researchers thought the entire idea was hopeless. Years passed. Then, one breakthrough changed everything. Scientists successfully recovered genetic material from ancient human remains. The impossible suddenly became possible. History was no longer limited to artifacts and ruins. For the first time, researchers could read genetic messages left behind by people who had lived thousands of years ago. The dead had found a voice. Nobody knew what they would say. At first, researchers expected confirmation. They expected DNA to support existing theories. Instead, it challenged them. The deeper scientists looked into ancient genomes. The more contradictions they found, the old story began to crack. And through those cracks, something unexpected appeared, a lost population, or rather, a population that was never truly lost. To understand the mystery, we need to travel back more than 12,000 years. Europe looked nothing like it does today. No capitals, no highways, no borders, no nations, only wilderness. Massive forests stretched beyond the horizon, rivers flowed through untouched valleys, wild animals dominated the landscape, and scattered across this world lived small groups of hunter-gatherers. They moved with the seasons. They followed migrating herds. They hunted deer, elk, and wild cattle. Their lives were difficult, but they survived, generation after generation, for thousands of years. They became masters of their environment. The forests were their home, the rivers were their roads, the stars were their maps. This way of life lasted for countless generations, then everything changed. Around 8,000 years ago, a new population began entering Europe. These newcomers carried something revolutionary: agriculture. They planted crops, raised livestock, built permanent settlements. Instead of following food, they produced it. The effects were dramatic. Villages expanded, populations grew, landscapes, lands changed. The farming lifestyle spread across the continent. Archaeologists called it one of the greatest transformations in human history, and according to traditional theories, the outcome was clear. Farmers succeeded, hunter-gatherers disappeared. The story seemed complete, but then something changed. Ancient DNA studies began producing unexpected results. Researchers extracted genetic material from ancient farmers, then from ancient hunter-gatherers. Then they compared both groups to modern populations. What they found shocked everyone. Modern Europeans carried DNA from both. Not one. Both. That shouldn't have happened. If hunter-gatherers had vanished completely, their genetic signature should have vanished too. Yet it survived, hid inside millions of people. The discovery raised new questions. Questions nobody could answer. How much hunter-gatherer ancestry survived? Where did it survive? Why did it survive? And what else had historians misunderstood? The search for answers was only beginning. Ancient skeletons started revealing their secrets. Each new discovery complicated the story. Each new genome added another piece to the puzzle, but the puzzle refused to become simpler. Instead, it became stranger. Some ancient farming communities contained almost no hunter-gatherer ancestry. Others contained substantial amounts. The pattern varied dramatically from place to place, region to region. Century to century, the evidence pointed toward a conclusion many researchers hadn't expected. The meeting between farmers and hunter-gatherers wasn't a single event. It happened repeatedly across generations. Across vast distances, history wasn't a clean replacement. It was a long process of interaction. People met, people traded, people married, people had children. The old populations became part of the new ones, and their descendants carried that history forward, hid inside their DNA. The implications were enormous. For decades, human history had been explained through migration and replacement. One group arrives, another disappears. The process repeats. Ancient DNA revealed a far more complicated reality. People mixed. Cultures merged. Identities changed, yet traces remained. The hunter-gatherers had never truly left. They survived in ways nobody expected, and scientists were about to discover just how deep those roots went. The first clues appeared quietly, a genome here, a skeleton there, nothing dramatic at first, just numbers on computer screens, sequence of DNA, tiny fragments of information. Yet hidden inside those fragments was a mystery, one that would force researchers to rethink thousands of years of history. Ancient hunter-gatherers lived in different parts of Europe. Some occupied western regions, others lived in the north, others survived farther east. For years, archaeologists treated these communities as separate chapters in history. But genetics revealed connections nobody expected. Populations separated by enormous distances shared common ancestry. Groups thought to be isolated were linked by ancient migrations. The picture became increasingly complex. Every answer produced new questions. Researchers discovered that Europe's first farmers were genetically distinct from local hunter-gatherers. That confirmed part of the traditional story. The newcomers really had arrived from elsewhere. But another detail didn't fit. Over time, farming populations began showing increasing amounts of hunter-gatherer ancestry. Year after year, generation after generation, the pattern was unmistakable. The two groups were mixing, not occasionally. Repeatedly, no one expected what came next. Scientists expanded their studies, more samples, more regions, more centuries. The results transformed the field. Ancient Europe wasn't populated by two groups. It contained many. Different communities moved across the continent. Some disappeared, others survived, many merged. The deeper researchers looked, the more tangled the story became. Human history resembled a braided river, different streams separating, different streams recladding, always changing, never standing still. One discovery proved especially important. Researchers found hunter-gatherer ancestry increasing in some farming communities long after agriculture had become established. That was unexpected. If hunter-gatherers were fading away, why was their genetic influence growing? The evidence suggested continued contact, continued interaction, continued survival. The old populations remained present far longer than anyone imagined. Some communities maintained hunting traditions for centuries, others adopted farming gradually. Different ways of life existed side by side. The boundaries were never as clear as historians once believed. And that realization changed everything because it revealed a deeper truth. Human beings rarely fit into neat categories. They never have. The labels came later, the reality was always messier. Ancient DNA was exposing that reality, one genome at a time. Researchers soon uncovered another surprise. Some modern populations contained more hunter-gatherer ancestry than expected. Much more. The percentages varied dramatically. Northern regions often showed stronger signals. Certain western regions did as well. The pattern hinted at events lost to history. Events that left genetic footprints but no written record. Scientists could see the results, but not the causes, at least not yet. The mystery deepened. How had these ancient genes survived so successfully? Why had they persisted for thousands of years? What made them endure when so much else disappeared? The answers remained hidden, buried beneath layers of time, waiting to be uncovered. And somewhere beyond the horizon of known history, another discovery was approaching, a discovery that would reveal an entirely new chapter in the human story, one nobody saw coming. Because Europe's hunter-gatherers and farmers weren't the only populations shaping the future. Another people were moving across the world. Another migration was beginning. And their arrival would change everything. What they found next shocked everyone. Everything pointed toward one answer. Europe's history was a story of hunter-gatherers and farmers. Two populations. Two worlds, one long process of mixing. The mystery seemed solved. But then something changed. In laboratories across Europe and North America, researchers began analyzing even more ancient genomes. New samples arrived from places few people expected: ancient burials, grasslands, Roman regions, stretching from Eastern Europe deep into Eurasia. The results didn't fit the existing model, not even close. Scientists found genetic signatures unlike anything they had seen before. These people weren't hunter-gatherers. They weren't early farmers. They belonged to a completely different population. A population that seemed to appear out of nowhere. For a moment, researchers thought they had made a mistake. Contamination, lab errors, faulty sequencing. Anything seemed more reasonable than the truth. But the data kept returning, again and again and again. The same pattern emerged. A third major ancestry had entered Europe, and its impact was enormous. These ancient people are now known as the Yamnaya, pastoralists who lived on the vast Eurasian steppe around 5,000 years ago. The landscape they inhabited was unlike the forests of Europe. Open grasslands stretched beyond the horizon. Wind swept across endless plains, communities traveled with herds of animals, mobility was survival, movement was life. For generations, these people thrived across the steppe. Then they began moving westward. What happened next transformed human history. Ancient DNA revealed that Yamnaya ancestry spread across enormous distances, faster than many researchers thought possible. Within a relatively short period, their genetic influence appeared throughout Europe. The evidence was unmistakable. The newcomers mixed with existing populations. Their DNA became embedded within future generations. A new chapter had begun. Yet the discovery created a deeper mystery. Why had nobody noticed this before? The answer was simple. Because bones don't always reveal ancestry. DNA does. Two skeletons can appear similar. Yet genetically, they may belong to populations separated by thousands of years. Ancient DNA was exposing hidden history invisible to traditional archaeology, history preserved at the molecular level. And every new discovery made the human story more complicated. Researchers realized Europe wasn't built from one migration, or two. It was shaped by repeated waves of movement, repeated encounters, repeated mixing. Every generation inherited pieces of multiple worlds. The hunter-gatherers survived, the farmers survived, the steppe populations survived, not as separate peoples, but as ancestors. Their descendants became modern populations. Their genetic signatures continued traveling through time. Hid inside millions of living people, the old story had collapsed completely. And scientists were only beginning to understand the implications, because another discovery was waiting. A discovery hidden inside the DNA itself. A clue that would reveal just how connected humanity truly is. The deeper researchers looked, the more they realized something extraordinary. The past wasn't dead, it was living inside us. Every cell carried fragments of ancient journeys, ancient encounters. Ancient lives whose names were forgotten, but whose DNA endured for thousands of years waiting to be found, and that is where the story gets strange. because some of those ancient genetic signatures survived far beyond Europe, far beyond the places where they first appeared. The trail was leading somewhere unexpected, toward a truth larger than anyone imagined. The biggest revelation didn't come from a single skeleton, or a single cave, or a single country. It emerged slowly, piece by piece, genome by genome. Study after study, scientists began comparing ancient DNA with modern populations around the world. The results revealed a stunning reality. Modern humans are genetic mosaics. Every population carries echoes of ancient peoples. Every population contains traces of migrations, encounters, and mixtures stretching back thousands of years. The hunter-gatherers never vanished. The early farmers never vanished. The steppe herders never vanished. Their identities changed. Their cultures evolved. Their languages disappeared. But their DNA continued forward. Generation after generation. Like a message passed through time, the realization changed the way researchers viewed history. For centuries, people imagined the past as a sequence of replacements. One people arrives, another disappears. The cycle repeats. Ancient DNA revealed something different. Human history is not a chain of endings. It is a chain of connections. The people of the past survive through their descendants, sometimes visibly, sometimes invisibly, but they survive. That survival can still be measured today, inside living populations, inside ordinary people, inside families who have no idea how far their ancestry reaches. What they found shocked everyone. The genetic legacy of ancient hunter-gatherers remained widespread. Not because those people conquered continents, not because they built empires, but because they lived. They formed families, they raised children, and those children had children of their own. The process repeated for thousands of years, until fragments of ancient DNA spread across entire populations. A hunter standing beside a river 10,000 years ago could never imagine the future. Could never imagine laboratories, computers, genetic sequencing, or scientists studying his descendants thousands of years later. Yet that is exactly what happened. His story survived, not through monuments, not through written records, not through legends, through biology, through inheritance, through blood. And that may be the most remarkable discovery of all, because it changes how we see ourselves. Every person alive today is connected to countless forgotten lives, people whose names are gone, people whose voices vanished long ago, people history almost erased. Almost, but not completely. Ancient DNA gave them one final chance to speak, and their message is simple. Human history was never as separate as we imagined. The boundaries we draw today often disappear when viewed across thousands of years. Cultures change, kingdoms fall, borders move, yet ancestry continues flowing from one generation to the next, carrying fragments of the distant past into the present. And that question has never been fully answered. How many other forgotten populations remain hidden inside us? How many ancient stories are still waiting inside bones buried beneath the earth? How many secrets remain locked within DNA we haven't yet studied? Scientists continue searching. New discoveries emerge every year, new genomes, new mysteries, new questions, because every answer reveals another layer beneath it, another hidden chapter, another forgotten ancestor. The hunter-gatherers are gone, the farmers are gone, the steppe herders are gone, yet parts of them remain, living quietly inside millions of people around the world. The civilizations ended, the DNA did not. And somewhere beneath an undiscovered layer of soil, inside an unopened grave, or inside a bone nobody has examined yet, the next piece of the story is still waiting. We just haven't found it yet.